"If you can fix this virus, I'll give you my salary." And she answered, "All done, boss." The 15th floor of the Midtown Business Tower buzzed with the tension of a troublesome Monday. Employees rushed back and forth, while phones rang non-stop. And at the center of it all was Michael Jenkins, the executive manager, barking orders no one could follow. That's when the main computer in the executive room froze completely, displaying an error message none of the technicians present could decipher. Michael slammed his fist on the desk, sending papers flying. "What kind of disaster is this? Can someone explain how we're supposed to present the quarterly report to the board in 2 hours with this piece of junk frozen?" The employees exchanged glances, none daring to take responsibility for the problem. That's when Barbara Williams walked in, pushing her cleaning cart. At 40, she kept her hair tied in a simple bun and wore the blue uniform that identified her as part of the janitorial staff. "Excuse me, just here to empty the trash bins," she said softly, trying not to draw attention. Michael turned to her with a sarcastic smile that made Barbara's blood run cold. "Well, look who's here. Our dear janitor," he said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "Barbara, since you're so clever, why don't you try fixing this computer?" The employees laughed nervously. Barbara felt her face grow warm but kept her composure. "Michael, let the woman work in peace," murmured Amanda, the secretary. No, I'm dead serious," Michael continued, pointing at her theatrically. "If you can solve this problem that's got our IT team pulling their hair out, I'll give you my entire salary this month. How about that?" Silence fell over the room. Barbara looked at the computer, then at the curious faces around her. She knew this kind of humiliation. For years she'd faced similar situations, but this time something different flashed in her eyes. "All done, boss," she replied calmly, stepping toward the desk. The simple, confident answer took everyone by surprise. Michael expected her to back down or make some defensive remark, but Barbara simply sat in the chair in front of the computer as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Seriously? You're actually gonna try?" he guffawed, looking around at his colleagues for support. "Everyone, look at this. Our janitor just became an IT expert overnight." Barbara ignored the comments and focused on the screen. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with a skill that immediately caught everyone's attention. She opened the command prompt and began typing a series of codes no one expected a cleaning staff member to know. Wait, said Kevin, the IT supervisor, stepping closer. "How do you know how to do this?" Barbara didn't answer right away. She kept working, her focus entirely on the screen. Within minutes, she'd identified that this wasn't just a common virus, but a very specific piece of malware. "Interesting," she murmured, almost to herself. "What's interesting?" Michael asked, his voice now less arrogant. "This isn't a virus that got here by accident. Someone installed it on purpose." The room grew even quieter. Barbara kept typing, navigating the system files with an ease that made her technical knowledge clear. As she worked, expressions of surprise spread across the faces around her. "Barbara," Amanda said hesitantly, you've worked with this before." "I have," she replied without looking away from the screen. "I was a systems analyst for 15 years before coming here. The bomb had been dropped." Michael felt his stomach twist. He had bet his salary in front of witnesses, and now he was discovering that the woman he had humiliated possessed exactly the qualifications needed to solve the problem. "What did you study?" asked Kevin, genuinely curious. "Computer science at the University of California, Berkeley. Postgraduate degree in information security. I worked at 3 different companies before accepting this job here." As she spoke, Barbara kept working. She had found the malicious file and was tracing its origin. What she discovered made her pause for a moment, rereading the information on the screen. "There's something strange here," she said, more to herself. "Strange how?" asked Michael, now clearly nervous. Barbara looked at him with an expression he couldn't decipher. This program wasn't just blocking the system. It was copying specific files, financial documents, payroll sheets, audit reports. "That's impossible," Michael said quickly. "Must be a misinterpretation." "It's not a mistake," Barbara replied calmly. "Look here. There's a complete log of everything accessed over the last 3 months. She turned the monitor so others could see. On the screen was a detailed list of files that had been systematically copied. Kevin stepped closer to examine it. "My God, this is everyone's personal data," he murmured. "Bank accounts, personal information, everything." "Who would do something like this?" asked Amanda. Barbara kept scanning the logs. Her expression grew increasingly serious as she uncovered more details. The program was installed locally. Someone with administrative access planted it here. "That's a very serious accusation," Michael said, trying to maintain authority in his voice. "You can't just—" "I'm not accusing anyone," Barbara interrupted. "I'm just reporting what the system is showing." She kept working, but now with a different determination. Each new discovery seemed to confirm her suspicions. Finally, she found something that made her stop completely. "Done. The virus is removed," she announced. "But there's something you all need to know." Everyone gathered around the screen. Barbara had opened a hidden folder containing dozens of documents. These files were being automatically sent to an external address, and the address is registered under someone at this company. The silence in the room was deafening. Michael had visibly paled. "How did you find this?" Kevin asked. "Experience," Barbara replied simply. "I've seen this kind of scheme before. In fact, it was investigating something similar that cost me my last job." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, continuing. Barbara's revelation had completely shifted the mood in the room. Michael tried to hide his nervousness, but his hands trembled slightly as he approached the computer. "Let me see that," he said, attempting to take control of the situation. "Of course," Barbara replied, standing up from the chair. "But first, let me save this evidence." "Evidence?" Michael forced a laugh. "No need to be so dramatic, Barbara. It's probably just some hacker trying to steal company data." "Could be," she agreed, but her fingers kept working on the keyboard. "But it's better to preserve everything for the investigation, don't you think?" In just a few minutes, Barbara had backed up all the incriminating files and saved them to a flash drive, which she discreetly slipped into her uniform pocket. Michael didn't notice, too busy trying to regain control. "Well, problem solved," he said, clapping his hands. "Barbara, you really surprised me. Who would have thought our cleaning lady had such hidden talents?" "By the way," said Amanda, "you promised to give her your salary if she managed to solve the problem." Michael Jenkins' embarrassment was visible. He had gotten himself into an impossible situation in front of all the employees. "Oh, of course," he stammered. "It was a joke, right? But I can give a bonus." "A promise is a promise," said Kevin, crossing his arms. Everyone here heard it. Barbara Williams watched the scene with interest, but without hurry. She had learned to read people over the years, especially men like Michael. She knew he would try to find a way out of his commitment. "Look, everyone," Michael said, trying to sound casual. "Barbara really did a great job, but let's be realistic. She's a cleaning staff member. She can't just..." "Just what?" Barbara interrupted him for the first time, her voice firmer. "I can't be competent because I clean bathrooms?" "That's not what I meant," he defended himself. "Then what did you mean?" The question hung in the air. Michael realized he had dug himself into an even deeper hole. The other employees watched the confrontation with growing interest. "Barbara," Amanda said hesitantly, "can I ask why you're working as a cleaner if you have all this training?" Barbara sighed. It was a question she knew she'd have to answer someday. "Because no company will hire me as a systems analyst." "Why not?" "Because 5 years ago, I reported irregularities at the company where I worked. The news spread through the industry, and since then I've been labeled a troublemaker." Silence filled the room again. Barbara continued, her voice quiet but firm. "The company I reported was part of the same corporate group as this one. When I found out they were embezzling employee benefits, I tried reporting it internally first. When no one listened, I took it to the press." "And what happened?" Kevin asked. "Nothing. The investigation was buried. I was fired for just cause, under claims of sabotage, and my name ended up on an informal blacklist in the industry." Michael was visibly uncomfortable with where the conversation was heading. "Well, that's all in the past," he said quickly. "What matters is the problem is solved. and we can get back to work. Is that so? Barbara stared directly at him. Then you'll keep your promise? What promise? Your entire salary. That's what you promised in front of everyone. Michael looked around, realizing there was no way out. Everyone present had clearly heard his offer. Barbara, let's be practical, he tried to negotiate. I can talk to HR about a promotion, a raise. I don't want a promotion, she interrupted. I want exactly what you promised, your entire salary for this month. The tension in the room was palpable. Michael knew he was cornered, but he couldn't just hand over his entire paycheck to a cleaning staff member. That would be too humiliating. Listen, Barbara, he said, trying to sound paternal. You're a smart woman. You know it was a joke. You don't have to take it so seriously. A joke? She repeated. Humiliating me in front of everyone was a joke. I wasn't humiliating you. Yes, you were. And you know why? Because you believe someone who cleans bathrooms can't have technical knowledge, because you think social status defines intelligence. The sharp observation left Michael speechless. Barbara continued, her voice gaining strength. You know the difference between us, Michael. I've already lost everything once for doing the right thing. You still have everything to lose for doing the wrong thing. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know a corruption scheme when I see one. And those files someone was stealing from the system? They show a very interesting pattern. Michael felt his blood run cold. What kind of pattern? Irregular deductions from the salaries of lower-level employees. Benefits that should have been paid but never were. Training funds that vanished into thin air. She paused, watching his reaction. And the most interesting part, bank transfers to personal accounts that shouldn't exist. The implied accusation was clear. Michael tried to keep his composure, but his voice betrayed his nervousness. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm just describing what I found in the system. And did you save this information? Of course. It's basic security protocol to preserve evidence of a breach. Michael realized he had been completely outmaneuvered. The woman he had tried to humiliate not only solved the technical issue, but also uncovered information that could destroy his career. Barbara, he said, trying a new approach, maybe we could discuss this in private. Why in private? Everyone here is a company employee. They have a right to know if their benefits are being diverted. The suggestion caused murmurs among those present. Amanda stepped closer to Barbara. Are you saying our company is stealing from us? I'm saying I found irregularities that deserve investigation. What kind of irregularities? Kevin asked. Barbara glanced at Michael before answering. He made a subtle gesture, as if asking her to stop, but she completely ignored him. You know the company offers a healthcare program for employees and their families, right? Of course, said Amanda. But I've never been able to use it. They always say I'm not eligible or that I need to pay a fee. Exactly, and do you know why? Because the money meant to fund that program is being diverted to other accounts. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Other employees began sharing similar experiences. I tried to get the childcare assistance in my contract, said a young employee. They told me the budget was exhausted. Well, Barbara said, the budget isn't exhausted. It's being used for other purposes. Michael knew he had to stop this conversation before it spiraled out of control. Everyone, let's stay calm, he said, raising his hands. These are very serious accusations. We can't jump to conclusions based on data interpretations. Interpretations? Barbara turned to him. The numbers are very clear. Should I show everyone? No, he answered too quickly, confirming everyone's suspicions. I mean, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss company financial matters with unauthorized employees. How interesting. Barbara smiled for the first time. 5 minutes ago, you said I was competent enough to earn your salary. Now you say I'm not authorized to see data from the very company I work for. The contradiction was obvious to everyone. Michael had completely contradicted himself, and his credibility was plummeting with every word. Things are different, he muttered. Are they? Or are you afraid of what else I might find? I'm not afraid of anything. Then prove it. Keep your promise. Pay me your entire salary, and I'll keep this information to myself. The proposal took everyone by surprise. Barbara was offering a deal, the promised salary, in exchange for her silence about the irregularities. Michael realized he was being blackmailed in a very elegant way. She had completely turned the tables. "Are you blackmailing me? I'm collecting a debt. You promised me your salary if I fixed the problem. I fixed it. Now I want to be paid. And the other things you found? Oh, those are a bonus. Information that a diligent employee gathered to protect the company from future breaches." The sarcasm in her voice was unmistakable. Michael was completely cornered. If he paid, he'd be admitting guilt. If he didn't, she could expose the irregularities. "I need time to think," he said. "Of course. Is by the end of the workday good? That's not enough time. It's the same amount of time you gave me to fix your IT problem." The quick retort drew muffled laughter from the other employees. Barbara had become the protagonist of the situation, and Michael, the cornered villain. "Fine," he conceded. "By the end of the workday." "Perfect," Barbara smiled. "Barbara, now if you'll excuse me, I have other offices to clean." She grabbed her cart and headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. "Oh, Michael, one thing I forgot to mention." "What?" "That virus that infected the system? It didn't come from outside. It was installed by someone with full admin access, someone who knows the company's systems very well." The final revelation left everyone stunned. Barbara walked out, leaving a heavy silence behind. Michael stood frozen, knowing his situation had just gotten even more complicated. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers out. Now back to it. The next few hours were torture for Michael. He tried to work normally but couldn't focus on anything except Barbara's ultimatum. The problem was far more complex than a simple deal to silence an inconvenient employee. During lunch, he decided to dig into Barbara's past. A few calls to acquaintances at other companies revealed a troubling history. Barbara Williams wasn't just a former systems analyst. She had been one of the most respected professionals in the field before her fall from grace. "She was brilliant," said a former colleague over the phone. "Uncovered a corruption scheme moving millions. When she reported it, the whole thing was swept under the rug. But she didn't back down. Took it to the press, the district attorney's office, anyone who'd listen. And what happened? What always happens in these cases? The company had more influence than her. They managed to tarnish her reputation, claimed she was lying out of revenge. In the end, she lost everything and was blacklisted in the industry." Michael hung up with growing unease. He was dealing with someone who had already lost everything once for doing the right thing. That made her far more dangerous than he'd initially thought. At 3 in the afternoon, he decided to act. He found Barbara in the janitorial supply room, organizing cleaning materials. "We need to talk," he said, trying to sound calm. "Sure," she replied without looking up. "About the payment?" "About that and other things. Are you really trying to blackmail me?" Barbara stopped what she was doing and turned to him. "I'm not blackmailing anyone, I'm just collecting what was promised to me." "And the information you gathered?" "Just data any competent systems analyst would find during a virus cleanup." "But you're not just any systems analyst, are you? You're someone with a history of causing trouble for companies." Barbara smiled, but it wasn't friendly. A history of causing trouble, or a history of exposing companies stealing from their employees? That's a matter of perspective. Really? Then explain your perspective on the benefits deducted from paychecks that were never delivered. Michael felt the conversation slipping away again. "These are complex issues. There are administrative reasons." "What administrative reasons justify stealing meal assistance from a single mother? No one is stealing anything." "Then explain why Tiffany Parker, who works in accounting, has had daycare assistance deductions for 8 months but never received the benefit." The specificity of the information alarmed Michael. Barbara had conducted a much deeper investigation than he had imagined. "How do you know this?" "Because while you all see me as just someone who cleans bathrooms, I talk to people. I listen to their stories. And when you have the technical knowledge to interpret financial data, things become very clear." "What do you want?" "I already told you. Your entire salary as promised." "And then?" "Then nothing. I keep working here, cleaning offices and talking to employees. The implied threat was clear. If he didn't pay, she would keep investigating and sharing information. Barbara, let's be practical. I can pay a reasonable amount, but my entire salary is impossible. Why is it impossible? You promised. Because I need the money to pay my bills. Oh, I see. You need the money for your bills. But Tiffany doesn't need daycare assistance for her child. The comparison left Michael speechless. Barbara continued. Michael, do you know how much I make as a cleaner? I don't know exactly. $1,200 a month. Do you know how much you make? He didn't answer. $12,000, 10 times more than me, and yet you think it's reasonable to break a public promise because you need the money for your bills. Things aren't that simple. To me, they are. A promise is a promise. If you didn't intend to keep it, you shouldn't have made it. Michael realized he had completely underestimated Barbara. She wasn't just demanding money. She was teaching a lesson about integrity and responsibility. And if I pay, will you disappear with all this information you've gathered? I'll file it properly like any responsible professional would. Is that a yes or a no? It's a maybe. Depends on what else I find while working here. The ambiguous answer made Michael even more uneasy. He was starting to understand that Barbara wasn't just interested in the money. She had a bigger agenda. What do you really want, Barbara? She looked him in the eyes for the first time during the conversation. Justice. What kind of justice? The kind that should exist in any decent workplace. Employees getting what they're owed, benefits being paid as promised, transparency in processes. And you think you can achieve that by blackmailing managers? I think I can achieve it by doing my job right. And my job isn't just cleaning offices, it's also observing, listening, and using my knowledge when necessary. Michael began to realize he had gotten himself into something much bigger than he'd imagined. Barbara wasn't just a former systems analyst working as a cleaner. She was an undercover investigator. How long have you worked here? 3 months. And how long have you been gathering this information? Since day one. The frank admission sent a chill down his spine. Barbara had been hired as a cleaner, but she had been conducting a systematic investigation of the company. Why did you choose to work here? Because when you're a professional who's been blacklisted in the industry, you take any job. And because sometimes the best investigations start from the bottom up. Are you planning to destroy the company? I'm planning to fix the company. There's a difference. And if the company doesn't want to be fixed, then it'll have to deal with the consequences of its choices. Michael realized he had no options left. Barbara had built an almost unshakable position of power. She had compromising information, the technical knowledge to interpret it, and apparently the determination to use it all. Fine, he conceded. I'll get the money. Excellent. By the end of the workday. By the end of the workday. Perfect. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to work. She went back to organizing the cleaning supplies as if nothing had happened. Michael left the storage room with the feeling that he had just lost a war he didn't even know he was fighting. The rest of the afternoon passed quickly. Michael tried to figure out how to get the money without raising suspicions, but it wasn't easy. His salary was deposited directly into his account, and withdrawing it all at once would raise questions he didn't know how to answer. At 5 o'clock, Barbara appeared in his office. So? She asked simply. I got part of the money, he said, showing her an envelope. The rest I can pay next week. Michael, our agreement was very clear. Your entire salary today. Be reasonable, Barbara. I tried, but did you try or did you not really want to try? I tried. Then let's do it differently. Transfer the money to me now on your phone. Transfer how? Venmo. You have your bank app on your phone, I have mine. Transfer it right now. The suggestion was both simple and terrifying. If he made the transfer, there would be a permanent bank record of the payment. Barbara, this will leave a trail. And what's the problem? You're keeping a promise you made publicly. Everyone heard you. But if someone investigates... Investigate what? You promised. I did my part. And now you're doing yours. What's irregular about that? Once again, her logic was flawless. Michael realized he was trapped by his own promise. Fine, he sighed. What's your Venmo ID? Barbara dictated her SSN. In a few minutes, the transfer was complete. $12,000 had left Michael's account and entered hers. "Perfect," she said, checking the confirmation on her phone. "Thank you for keeping your word." "And now? Now you're still the manager, and I'm still the janitor. And the information you collected? It's safely archived." "Barbara, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really take this job?" She looked out the window before answering. "Because this company is part of the same group that destroyed me 5 years ago, and because some debts were never settled." The final revelation left Michael speechless. Barbara wasn't here by chance. She had a personal mission. "Are you planning revenge?" "I'm planning justice. If you call that revenge, that's your problem." "And what happens to me?" "That depends on you. If you're part of the problem, you'll have to face the consequences. If you want to be part of the solution, you can help me." "How?" "By being honest, by stopping stealing from employees, by doing your job right." "And if I refuse?" "Then you'll find out what happens when someone with my knowledge and my motivation decides you're an obstacle." The threat was clear. Michael had completely lost control of the situation. The woman he had tried to humiliate now had power over his career and possibly his freedom. "What do you want me to do?" "For now, nothing. Just keep working as usual. But the next time you think about stealing from employees or humiliating someone you consider beneath you, remember this conversation." Barbara headed for the door but stopped before leaving. "Oh, Michael, one last thing." "What?" "Next time you make a promise, make sure you can keep it. You never know who you're talking to." She left, leaving Michael alone with his thoughts and $12,000 short in his bank account. But the money was the least of his problems. Barbara had made it clear that her investigation was just beginning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The following days were extremely tense for Michael. He tried to work normally, but he knew Barbara was watching his every move. Several times he spotted her talking to employees from different departments, always with her discreet janitorial demeanor, but he knew she was gathering information. The situation grew even more complicated when Amanda, the secretary, approached Barbara during lunch break. "Barbara, can I talk to you?" Amanda asked, visibly nervous. "Of course, dear. What's wrong?" "It's about what you mentioned yesterday, about the benefits being deducted but not paid out." "What about them?" "I checked my pay stubs for the last 6 months. There's a deduction for a family health plan, but when I tried to use it to take my mom to the doctor, they said I wasn't eligible." Barbara stopped cleaning and gave Amanda her full attention. "Do you have the pay stub with you?" "I do." Amanda handed over the papers. "Look here, every month, a $250 deduction for a family health plan." Barbara examined the documents carefully. Her expression grew increasingly serious. "Amanda, do you know of other employees with the same issue?" "I do. Nancy from accounting has the same deduction, but when her son broke his arm, she had to pay out of pocket because they said the plan didn't cover it." "What about Pete from maintenance?" "Him too. His wife needs physical therapy, but the plan always denies it." Barbara had uncovered a systematic pattern. The deductions were being taken, but the benefits didn't exist in practice. "Amanda, can you do me a favor?" "Of course. Can you discreetly talk to other employees and see how many have the same problem, but keep it low-key, just ask casually." "Why?" "Because if what I'm thinking is right, you've all been robbed for months." The word robbed made Amanda swallow hard. "Robbed how?" "You're paying for a benefit that doesn't exist. The money is being taken from your paychecks and going somewhere else." "Where?" "That's what I need to find out." Amanda left to do the quiet research Barbara had asked for. 2 hours later, she returned with a list of 17 employees who had the same issue. "Barbara, this is much worse than I thought," Amanda said, handing over the papers. "Everyone has the deduction, but no one can use the benefit." Barbara scanned the list. Doing quick math, she realized that just on this one item, over $4,000 a month was being deducted from employees' paychecks. "Amanda, can you help me with one more thing?" "Whatever you need. I need access to the company's financial reports, not the detailed ones, just the internal summaries." I can get that. Pam from administration always leaves copies on her desk. Perfect. But be careful not to raise suspicions. Don't worry. Meanwhile, in his office, Michael had other problems. He'd received a call from Richard Thompson, the company's regional director. Michael, we need to talk about last month's reports, Richard said. What's the issue with the reports? Some numbers don't add up. Employee benefit expenses are way too low compared to the deductions on the payroll. Michael's stomach twisted. This was exactly the kind of scrutiny he'd feared. Must be a typo, he tried to downplay. A $50,000 typo. 50,000? That's the difference between what was deducted from employees and what was actually spent on benefits over the last 3 months. The number was far bigger than Michael had imagined. He knew there were irregularities, but he didn't grasp the full scale of it. Richard, can I look into this and get back to you by Friday? Go ahead, but be discreet. If this leaks, it could turn into a scandal. Leave it to me. Michael hung up the phone, knowing his situation had become critical. If Richard was investigating the irregularities, it was only a matter of time before everything came to light. He decided to reach out to Barbara again. He found her in the records room, sorting through old documents. I need to talk to you urgently, he said. About what? About the information you gathered. Things have changed. Changed how? The regional board is investigating the irregularities in benefits. If they uncover everything, it's going to be a huge mess. Barbara didn't seem surprised. And what's the problem? If there are irregularities, they should be investigated. Barbara, be realistic. If this blows up, everyone's going down, including you. How so? You're an employee here. If they find out there's a corruption scheme, everyone will be under suspicion. Interesting. Now you're worried about me. I'm worried about everyone. This could destroy the whole company. Barbara stopped organizing the files and turned to him. Michael, let me explain something. I've already been destroyed once for doing the right thing. I won't be destroyed again for covering up the wrong thing. But you could go down with everyone else. Or I could be seen as someone who helped uncover and fix the problem. How? By cooperating with the investigation, providing all the information I've gathered. The suggestion terrified Michael. Oh, you can't do that. Why not? Because you blackmailed me to get my salary. If you reveal that, you'll go down too. Barbara smiled for the first time in the conversation. Michael, you still don't get it, do you? Get what? I didn't blackmail you, I just held you to a promise you made publicly. Everyone heard it, there's nothing irregular about that. But the information you gathered was collected during my legitimate work of cleaning viruses from the system. Any competent technician would do the same. Michael realized Barbara had orchestrated everything perfectly. She could cooperate with any investigation without legal repercussions. So now what? What are you going to do? I'll keep doing my job, and if anyone asks me about irregularities I've uncovered, I'll answer honestly. Barbara, please. There has to be a way to fix this without destroying everything. There is. How? You stop stealing from employees, return what was taken, and we start doing things right. It's not that simple. Why not? Because the money's already been spent. There's no way to return it. Spent on what? Michael hesitated before answering. Personal investments, expenses, things I can't undo. The implicit admission of guilt confirmed all of Barbara's suspicions. So you really were stealing. I was temporarily diverting funds. The plan was to replace everything. When? When it was possible. And when would that be? I don't know. Barbara shook her head, clearly disappointed. Michael, do you know how long it took me to save the $12,000 you paid me yesterday? I don't know. 10 months. 10 months of saving every spare cent from my janitor's salary. And you diverted $50,000 from employee benefits for personal expenses. The comparison was devastating. Michael felt small facing the woman confronting him. I know I did wrong. Acknowledging it is the first step. The second is fixing it. How? By taking responsibility, returning the money, implementing controls so it doesn't happen again. And if I do that, you won't report me. Michael, I don't need to report you. The board's investigation will uncover everything on its own. The only difference is whether you'll cooperate or be exposed. And what's the advantage of cooperating? The advantage is that people who help solve problems are treated differently from those who try to hide them. Michael ran his hand through his hair, clearly desperate. Barbara, I need time to think. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, I'll go to the regional director and offer my cooperation in the investigation. Why tomorrow morning? Because that's when he arrives for the emergency meeting about the financial irregularities. How do you know that? Because cleaning staff overhear a lot of conversations people assume they don't understand. Once again, Barbara showed she was far more informed than anyone realized. Michael knew there was no way out. Fine, until tomorrow morning. Perfect. And Michael? What? Sleep well. Tomorrow will be a long day. She went back to organizing files as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Michael left the records room knowing his career, and possibly his freedom, depended on the decisions he'd make in the next few hours. The next morning, Richard Thompson arrived early for the meeting. Michael was waiting in the lobby, visibly nervous. Richard, I need to talk to you before the meeting, Michael said. About what? About the irregularities you mentioned yesterday. Did you find something? I found out they're worse than we thought. Richard took him to a private room. Michael took a deep breath before speaking. Richard, I'll be straight with you. There's been systematic misappropriation of funds meant for employee benefits. How much? About $50,000 over the last 3 months. And who's responsible? Michael closed his eyes for a moment. Me. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard stared at him with a mix of shock and disappointment. You're telling me you stole $50,000 from the company? I'm saying I diverted funds with the intention of paying it back later. That's theft, Michael. I know. Why are you telling me this? Because I found out I'm not the only one who knows, and because I want to help fix this. Who else knows? A cleaning staff member, former systems analyst. She found out while cleaning a virus from the system. Richard processed the information, and she came to you? Not exactly. It was more complicated than that. Michael told the whole story, the virus challenge, the salary promise, and how Barbara had uncovered the irregularities. Richard listened without interrupting. Let me get this straight, Richard said when Michael finished. You challenged a former systems analyst to solve a technical problem, promised to pay her salary if she succeeded, and she not only fixed it but also discovered you were stealing from the company. Basically, yes. And now she's cooperating with the investigation? She offered to. Where is she? Probably working on some flaw. Bring her here, I want to talk to her. Michael went to find Barbara. He found her on the 12th floor cleaning a conference room. Barbara, the regional director wants to speak with you. About what? About the irregularities you found. You already told him everything? I did. And he believed you? He did. He wants to hear your side. Perfect. Barbara followed Michael back to the room where Richard was waiting. When she entered, he was clearly surprised. She was a young woman, simple in appearance, wearing a janitor's uniform. You're Barbara? Barbara Williams, at your service. Michael told me your story. You really uncovered irregularities while cleaning a virus. I did. And I documented everything properly. Can you show me? Barbara pulled a flash drive from her pocket. It's all right here. System logs, illegally copied files, transfer records, incriminating documents. Richard picked up the USB drive and plugged it into his laptop. He spent several minutes examining the files. This is very detailed, he finally said. I'm a systems analyst by training. I know how to document digital evidence. Why are you working as a cleaner? Because after reporting irregularities at a company in the same group 5 years ago, I became blacklisted in the industry. And why did you accept a job here? Barbara looked Richard straight in the eyes. Because when you lose everything for doing the right thing, you take any honest work opportunity. And because sometimes justice takes time, but it always comes. The answer struck Richard with its direct honesty. And what do you want now? For the employees to receive the benefits they're paying for for the irregularities to be fixed, for this not to happen again. What about Michael? That's your call. He cooperated to solve the problem. That counts in his favor. Michael was surprised by the partial defense Barbara gave him. You're not angry at him. I'm disappointed. But people who take responsibility and help fix mistakes deserve a second chance. Richard was impressed by the maturity of her response. Barbara, can I make you an offer? Of course. How about returning to your field? We have an opening in internal audit. Internal audit? Exactly. Someone with your technical knowledge and integrity would be perfect to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. Barbara fell silent for a moment, processing the offer. What about Michael? Michael will be removed from the finance department, but kept in an administrative role. He'll repay the misused money through payroll deductions. And will the employees get their benefits? All benefits will be reinstated immediately, and we'll implement controls to ensure full transparency. Barbara smiled for the first time since entering the room. In that case, I accept the offer. Perfect. You can start next Monday. Can I make a suggestion? Of course. Set up a direct whistleblower channel. Many problems could be avoided if employees had a safe place to report irregularities. Great idea. Would you be willing to oversee that as well? Gladly. Richard turned to Michael. And you? Do you accept the terms? Michael nodded silently. He wasn't in a position to negotiate. Perfect. We'll implement the changes immediately. In the following months, the company underwent a complete transformation. Barbara took on the role of internal auditor and implemented a series of controls that ensured full transparency in financial processes. The whistleblower channel she created received dozens of reports, helping to identify and resolve minor issues before they became scandals. Michael was transferred to the HR department, where he worked under constant supervision. Surprisingly, he adapted well to the new role and showed genuine interest in repairing the damage he'd caused. Employees finally began receiving all the benefits they'd paid for. Tiffany Parker managed to enroll her daughter in the company daycare. Amanda got her mother medical care using the health plan. Pete, from maintenance, secured physical therapy for his wife. 6 months later, Barbara was in her new office, reviewing financial reports when Michael appeared at the door. Can I come in? Of course, I came to thank you. Thank me for what? For not destroying me when you could. Barbara looked at him with interest. Michael, do you know the difference between justice and revenge? I don't. Justice is about fixing what's wrong. Revenge is about destroying the one who did wrong. I've always preferred justice. And do you think you succeeded? Barbara looked out the window, watching the employees having lunch in the company courtyard, chatting animatedly without the tension of previous months. I think so. The employees are getting what they deserve. The company is running honestly, and even you got a second chance to do things right. And you? Are you happy with how it all turned out? I'm fulfilled. It's not the same as happy, but it's better than many alternatives. Why fulfilled? Because I proved that competence and integrity always win over arrogance and corruption, even when it takes time. Michael stayed silent for a moment. Barbara, can I make a confession? Of course. When you said, "All done, boss," that day, I thought you were humiliating me. But really, you were giving me the chance to do the right thing. How so? If I'd kept my promise without resistance, without trying to deceive you, you would have kept the information and never mentioned it again, right? Barbara smiled. Maybe, but you chose to try to deceive me. And that showed me the problem was much bigger than a simple office challenge. You tested me. I gave you the opportunity to show who you really were. You chose what to reveal. And now? Now you're getting the chance to show who you can become. It's a second opportunity many people never get. Thank you for that. Don't thank me. Thank me by taking responsibility every day to be a better person. Michael left the room, leaving Barbara with her thoughts. She had gotten what she wanted. Justice, not revenge. The company was running honestly, the employees were getting what they deserved, and even Michael had learned a valuable lesson. Later that day, Amanda came to visit her. Barbara, how did you know it would all work out? I didn't, Barbara answered honestly, but I knew I couldn't let it go. Sometimes you have to bet everything on doing the right thing, even without guarantees. And if it hadn't worked out? Then at least I'd know I tried. Better to try and fail than never try and always wonder what if. You're brave. I'm not brave, I'm stubborn. When I believe in something, I don't give up easily. Is that what made you report the irregularities at your last company? Yes. And that's what brought me here. You don't regret it? Regret what? Losing everything for doing the right thing? Never. Because in the end, I proved I was right. And now I have a better life than before. How better? Before, I was just a competent systems analyst. Now I'm a competent systems analyst who knows her integrity is worth more than any salary. Amanda smiled. The employees are calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to accept injustice. To us, it's the same thing. That night, Barbara went home satisfied. It had taken nearly a year, but she'd finally gotten what she wanted. Not just a job in her field, but the chance to make a difference in the lives of people who, like her, had been wronged. Her modest apartment had never felt so welcoming. She made a simple dinner and sat down to write in her journal, a habit she'd kept since her teens. Today marks 1 year since I took the janitorial job at the company. A year of humiliation, discoveries, confrontations, and finally, justice. I've learned that sometimes the longest path is the only one that leads to the right destination. I've learned that technical skill without integrity is worthless, but integrity without technical skill has its limits too. I've learned that doing the right thing doesn't always bring immediate rewards, but it always brings peace of mind. She closed the journal and got ready for bed. Tomorrow morning, there would be more work ahead. There were other departments to audit, other processes to improve, other employees to protect. But for the first time in 5 years, Barbara Williams slept completely at peace with herself. The end of the story. So what did you think of this incredible story of perseverance? Barbara proved that competence and honesty always win in the end, didn't she? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one.